good morning, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Carl. And I have an amazing guest that's going to share the stage with me this morning. I'd like to thank everybody, get the housekeeping out the way. Thank all of those who are joining me live. Please put in where you're joining in from, where you're tuning in from. You know, this is a global show, so we have people that are watching all over the world. I'm excited about this conversation that we're going to have today. I did a Zoom call with this wonderful lady. And oh my God, it was just one of those mind things that you are extremely glad that you did and you follow through with. And it is just that we're going to talk about some things here today for my audience that may not have really realized the discussions or the things that we're going to talk about, but we're going to put them in an aspect for you to understand, for you to dive in. If you've got questions, please pop them up. Let me know. We want to get you guys involved and we want her to be able to answer the questions to you. But I am bringing in someone. This lady is acclaimed in her field, and she is the author. She's a psychologist. She's a mental health advocate, former clinical. I mean, I can go on and on with the accolades and the things that she's done. She she is a sweet spirit and a joyful person as well. And I've really gotten a good doses of learning more about her. But I'm going to let you guys learn more about her, and I'm going to bring her to the stage without any further ado. Miss Melissa Doman, how are you, Miss? How you doing?
Hello.
Good,
I'm
good.
doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Just giving a little bit about you and what we're going to be
Oh,
talking about there. Our discussion today is going to be the neuroscience and the mental health impact of tribalized social division. And you say, Carl, you're going deep into your little bag today. Well, we had this conversation and we came up with we started coming up with this. And Melissa came from the neuroscience and the mental health, and I started talking about the impact in the social activity and the social conduct. So we kind of put this thing together, and we really want to just discuss it today, just to enlighten the audience and just hear some viewpoints that maybe you've had these kind of discussions, but you didn't know what to name them, you didn't know what terminology to use with having them. But we just want to educate and also enlighten some others that may not be really understanding what's going on and what's behind what's going on. So we're going to
yeah.
get into that. We're going to get that. But first, Lisa, listen, just let everybody know who you are first off.
Sure. My name is Melissa Doman. Everybody calls me Mel. I'm an organizational psychologist, former clinical mental health therapist, and author.
I heard
Yay.
a bit push back
Yeah,
there.
super,
Yes.
super excited. It's coming out in October. And
Yeah.
the core of what I do is teaching companies, leaders, and individuals how to have constructive conversations about mental health at work. My clients are companies, they're all over the globe, from teeny tiny mom and pop shops all the way up to Estee Lauder, Salesforce, Siemens, and Charlotte Tilbury. And everybody has mental health. And so everybody deserves the opportunity to speak about it constructively in the workplace. And that is a skill set like any other skill set. And I've really been paying a lot of attention really to the psychology and the sociology of the last 18 months, very particularly because I just have a very specific viewpoint on how it's all kind of unfolding. And I really just want to give people concrete tools on how to deal with that change and that uncertainty.
Yeah. So and when you're looking at that, and we're talking about, and we're really uh, in the realm of space and time, we're talking about the pandemic, and we're just really watching the news. And I mean, you have to watch it for things to go on. You have to be kind of like looking at things to see how things are progressing on the outside of your home. So you really like news is kind of important, even though it depends on who you're talking to, how important it is, or how truthful it is. But when you're talking
Yeah.
about all of the activities that are taking place now, and we're just stay zoned on the pandemic and how people are reacting to this. Now we're going back into a pattern of, I know I'm here in New Jersey, we're going back into a pattern where they're starting to mandate and they're starting to, the kids going back to school in a couple of weeks, and they're going to have to wear masks. And now some of the stores are, they're pitting these people in the middle. The government really is pitting these people in the middle of these store owners and these companies that have to make these decisions. And now I think I
Yeah.
was watching yesterday, and the airlines now are trying to say, if you're going to work for us, you're going to have to, you're either going to have to get a vaccination, or we're really going to make it difficult for you. We're going to have you testing a couple times a day, every day of the week. Or, when we have all of these things in place, how is that really working on people's mental as far as what's already taking place? It's sort of like they're playing a chess game and we're kind of like the pawns in that. How is that really affecting our mental health, how we're thinking, how we're even interacting with each other?
Well, it's definitely not doing us any favors, is what I'll say. It's really difficult because the extreme opinionatedness is coming from both sides. We can be really honest about that.
Yeah.
And in terms of what I'm viewing, is that instead of encouraging constructive conversations about differences of thought, they are telling people, pick a camp. That's what they're doing. They're saying, pick a camp, pick a tribe, and stick with it and stick with the message and try to convince the other side. And it's the other side's fault because XYZ, as opposed to seeking to understand or have a constructive debate or using our big kid words, things like that, because it's not as interesting. It's
Yeah.
not as flashy, and it takes critical thinking and a much longer period of time. Whereas encouraging people to pick a snap judgment or make a mental heuristic, which is basically just a mental shortcut, and sticking to the message is quicker, flashier, and more interesting. So it's not doing anybody any favors because they're not realizing the innate animal instincts and triggers that they're bringing up in people, because let's not forget, we're all just animals that can talk, and we're all animals that are self-aware. And so what they're not realizing is by giving us this direction, that's what they're activating in people. Because when people feel like they're being told that their opinion is wrong, or their actions are dangerous, or what they're doing is stupid, or whatever it is, this front part of the brain that makes us, logical, have a conscience, make good decision making, that just shuts off. And we're starting to communicate from the more primal regions of our brains, which are designed for survival. And lots of people aren't just taking a breath to slow down to realize that. So we're just ripping each other to shreds.
Yeah, and it's really getting bad. I got a couple of trips coming up, and I got to do this air travel, and it's like it seems like the closer I get to the trips I got to make, it's like I'm seeing more incidents of somebody's beating somebody over the head on the airplane. I mean, we're
Yeah.
we're actually, and then now we're talking about this tribalization kind of thing. It really is pitting
Yeah.
us back to the point of prehistoric time where you got to like pick a side. No one is having discussions, and if they're having discussions, they're really based upon the persuasion of, can I get you to see it the way I see it? No one is really
Exactly.
having these kind of
Yeah.
discussions to say, what's the logic in what you're seeing and what I'm seeing? And let's come to maybe that fork in the road, but let's come to a place where we both can agree.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing that. I'm not even seeing the temperament of that with people. How dangerous a state are we really in right now when you think about what's all really going out the window?
I would say it's critical to the point of tipping over. That's what I would say. Because you are very, very correct that it's typically not, help me understand your position. What are your concerns? What are you worried about? Have you considered ABC? That's not what people are doing, because they're just so jacked up and inflamed that the thought to ask that question is not even kicking on, especially because there's not a ton of messaging that's encouraging that sort of behavior. So if you think about, I mean, I really see us not only as humans, but as organisms responding to a changing volatile ecosystem. And some organisms are dealing with that well, some are not dealing with it well, and most people are somewhere in between. So it's really driving the types of conversations, because our brains cannot tell the difference between a perceived threat and a real threat. So what I mean by that is, perceived threat is feeling threatened with your belief systems and feeling attacked, but your brain perceives that as a saber-toothed tiger in the corner trying to eat you. That's what happens. And so it's at this critical point where I just saw something this morning that a group of protesters in the UK, where I lived with my husband for 3 years,
Mhm.
of anti-vaxxers stormed the BBC studios
Wow.
to make a statement, but they got the wrong address, which is kind of ironic. But if you
Mm.
look at, people storming news stations or January 6th, it's all a part of the fact that people are literally going to pop. We cannot take this chronic division, the chronic stress, the chronic arguing, the violence.
Yeah.
People are saying, I can't take anymore, but no one's, there's a lack of cohesion to try to cool the situation down and
Yeah.
encourage constructive debate and dialogue.
Yeah, and we're not carrying that, and it's funny, and even in speaking with this with you and the knowledge that you have of it, and just a little knowledge that I have from seeing on the neuroscience part of it, um, it's a lot of people that are saying these things that are viewing these things, knowing the direction that they're taking, giving advice to those who can probably make changes in that, and it's just the willfulness that we don't want to get off the train. It's just like it's collisions. Like we're heading toward a catastrophe in that. And when I talk to people about this, and I try not to sound like oh doomsday kind of thing, but I really look at a lot of things that we are. I think we're really in that. We're in that Armageddon stage where people aren't, because it's the simplest of things where we had respect for. We like totally don't have respect for those things anymore. It's not even
Nope.
so much. I mean, you hear about the killings and the shootings in cities. I mean, that has been to some kind of degree where we've heard continuously, but now we're hearing things like storming buildings. We're hearing things like store fights, and we're hearing things like you go into shopping malls and brawls is breaking out. And I'm like, we have not been in the cusp of this kind of thing. Not, I don't think in my lifetime, even with the civil rights movement and those kind of things, they were still focusatory on one spot, one position, equal rights, that kind of like it is really all over now. Whether it's
Yes.
just
Yes.
fun, like someone getting in line behind you, don't have a mask. So I was in yeah, I'm gonna call their name out. Might as well. I was in Walmart a couple of days ago, and this lady was behind me, and they're kind of like you got to wear your mask. So I've been vaccinated a long time since it first came out. So, but I wear my mask because things are tightening, and with this variant, I really don't know where it's going. And
I wear
so
my mask too, absolutely, and I'm
yeah,
vaccinated. So,
I'm really sick and sorry. I mean, what do I have to lose? I've had corona. I've had the virus when it first came out, and I don't want to share that with anyone. So to me,
mhm.
it's a no-brainer, right? I
Yeah.
mean, thinking about it for us. But I mean, this lady she was like adamant, like, I'm just sick and tired of wearing masks. I'm just sick and like she's going back and forth with the security in the store. And they're like, man, well, you gotta put your mask on because it's about other people and all. And I mean, this lady was like, if you could kind of see spirits, you can kind of like see the devil rising up in her. That's how angry she was
Oh
about
my.
having to put on a mask. So she just threw her food up on the floor and just walked out the store. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can imagine just even maybe 5 years ago, those kind of things you were not witnessing on an everyday basis. Those kind of
No.
attitudes. So people just kind of had some like, I'm not going to do this in public. Now people are
Yeah.
not caring. How can we start to change some of these if we can, even at this point in time in the game?
Oh gosh, that's a really tall order.
We'll
Um,
start,
you know,
we'll start with the steps. So some of the steps
no, of
we can
course, of
take. Yeah.
course. And just to share, I've actually been through a couple of those situations myself.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because I would say, because just to give a bit of context and then some of the actions of how to deal with it, I
Okay.
would say that people are so burned out from the stress and the trauma of everything going on that I would actually venture to say most of us are regressing back towards childlike behaviors. That when
Yeah.
we feel like we can't control something, we feel like we can't influence something, we start acting out like children.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Meh.
You true.
Tough,
So right.
tough expletive. I didn't know if
Yeah.
I was allowed to say the word on your show, so I'm trying to be considerate.
Thank
Um,
you.
People, they go back to childlike behaviors because they can't regulate their emotions, they can't use their big kid words, so they just do what's easy. And I also think that because a lot of us are really stressed out, that our tolerance for discomfort is really, really low. And what, I can't take wearing a mask anymore. Is it really that awful? Is it
Right.
really that painful? And what's also really interesting is that a mask is a social artifact now. So what I mean by that is when you wear a mask, you're communicating to others what your value system is. And when you don't wear one, you're communicating to people what your value system is,
True.
vaccinated or not.
Yeah.
So I had someone verbally come at me outside of a bakery for
Mm,
wearing a mask. And this was a grown
mm,
man, middle aged, who told me that me wearing a mask looks stupid, and he was like harassing other people. And then my husband was in the grocery store, and this man was being really awful to one of the workers behind the deli counter and started
mm.
saying some pretty racially awful things. And
Yeah.
when my husband stood up for the worker, the man then turned his attention on my husband and called him a derogatory term as well.
Mm,
So this is just the world that we're in now. So in terms of how to deal with those situations, the easy thing is to scream at people because that's what we want to do. But it just
right.
escalates and escalates and escalates. So in my experience, if someone's acting like that, the way to at least make them pause is if you're asking questions. They're not really prepared for that. So if
Okay.
someone's acting out and coming at you, my typical response is, why are you doing this? Why are you acting this way? I don't even know you. I don't want to fight with you. And it kind of throws them off, and they're like, well, wait a minute, why isn't this person fighting back? It's not a guaranteed help. Let's be clear
Right.
about that, because you can't guarantee anything with humans. But if you're asking questions to seek to understand why they're acting that way, it at least makes them pause for a second. They may not answer you, but it
Yeah.
will temporarily halt things. And if there's a misunderstanding or you're having a disagreement, it's really just, I don't know you. I don't want to have this argument with you.
Yeah.
Can we just like, can we take it down a notch? That either will make someone pause and cool down, or they'll go into hyperdrive and get really upset. But the
Mm,
problem is, all you can control and influence is how you react, how you engage with that person. How they then react is totally beyond your control. So instead of adding fuel to the fire,
yeah.
if they're coming at you, seek to understand why they're doing that. But then if it escalates, it gets to a point where you need to verbally defend yourself. Try
Mm,
and use your big kid words and try and be constructive. Don't resort to name calling. Don't resort
yeah.
to things that are inflammatory, that you can't rest your head at night knowing that you acted like the not didn't act like the adult.
Yeah, because it's when you look at it, and while you were talking, it came to my mind. So like everyone has to play the psychologist now, because like it's like now everybody has to put on a psychologist hat, or at least some form of fashion of what we understand psychologists to do, and we have to take in consideration the behavior of others on a
Yeah.
more so level. I used to tell my kids when I first taught them how to drive, it's like you have to drive for everyone. And they was kind of like, what do you mean? I'm just gotta worry about me in the car. I'm like, no, because now we're in the age when I was teaching them to drive, where we had started having a lot of texting and driving and those kind of distractions and the new little sound systems and the panels in the cars and those things. So when I was teaching them to drive, I was like, these things are distractions to other drivers. And though they may be skillful at actually driving a vehicle, those distractions prohibit your skills. So they're no longer
Yeah.
there the way that you think they are. I don't care what people think. I can drive, I can take. No, you can't. It's just a proven fact. And your mind tells you can, because that's just what your mind tells each and every individual. But I used to tell them that. So now we're becoming that factor where not only were they driving for everyone and being careful how they move the vehicle, but also watching those that drove around them. Now we have to do that in the essence of being a psychologist, because at any point in time, those things can pop off. I've been in places where just like that, like stuff has
Yeah.
escalated.
Oh yeah. Me
And
too.
I'm just thankful to God I was never in a point where it was a shootout or anything of that
Yeah.
nature. But I mean, I've been in the line and people have come to fisticuffs. I've had to get out the line and make sure I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
I didn't see that happen. And I mean, really, and it truly, when I look at it, it was all over wearing a mask. Like I can't get past that
Yeah.
objective to where we're going. So like caveman back to the, and that's really what it is. Like my
Yep.
strength over your strength, my word over your
Yeah.
brutal. When you think about that and what we're dealing with now, and probably, I don't know, even for the foreseeable future, not even having so many answers available to us. What are some of the things that, beside the soft talk or the deflecting, what are some of the things that you think, from the neuroscience point and mental health point of this, how can we kind of like get a hold of this personally? Not so much as, but you individually.
Socially, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that's a really good question. So, God, everybody needs a tune up in therapy, if I'm honest.
That's a
Honestly,
psychologist in you, right?
no, but it's also like, I mean, God, think about it. The brain is an organ like any other organ in the body, right?
Right.
And so the brain has a healthy state and an illness state like every other organ in the body. So for us to go to a gastroenterologist if we have IBS, or go to a endocrinologist if we have diabetes, why in God's green earth is it stigmatized to go for counseling with a therapist if you're feeling anxiety or depression or anger or whatever it is? It literally makes no logical sense. So, yes, absolutely, I'm an advocate because I used to be a therapist and I've studied psychology and all of that. But
Yes.
logically, how does it not make sense? It is literally taking care of an organ that is slipping into an illness state so you
Mhm.
can get back to a healthy state and so you can manage the symptoms, take the edge off. There is no cure for
Yes.
emotional distress, despite the fact that that's what we would love. But it's really about just normalizing, just reach out for help, talk to someone, even if it's not a certified professional. Normalizing talking about the struggle, normalizing talking about how you're feeling with other people. It really is that simple. And so to serve your body when different parts are breaking down, but not serve your mind when your mind is getting challenged, literally is illogical. It's just an organ, just like any other organ in the body. But this organ governs who you are, how you think, how you look at yourself, how you interact with others, how you interact with your environment. Don't you want to keep that organ in a healthy state if possible? It's really that simple. So if you detach the social meaning from therapy, or you detach the stigma from therapy, and you look at it just as an organ that needs service, it's really that simple. But we don't often detach the social meaning from going to counseling. So
Yeah.
therapists are busy these days,
I can
and
imagine.
there are lots of ways to get support, whether it's counseling, or if you're going to a support group, or you're just talking to friends or family, whatever it is. Normalize talking about the struggles of this organ.
Yeah.
It's
That's
really that
good.
simple.
Yeah, that's good. It's they used to tell me all the time, it's easier said than done, right? We're having people that
Yes.
are no. So I remember, just in point, maybe about 2 years now, I started talking about vulnerability and getting in touch with your vulnerability, especially being in the workplace and all of that. And I had to fight the stigma of just being, vulnerable is harmful. We don't want to fool with it. We don't want to work with it. We don't want to, let people know about things. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, why are people not really realizing that now? It's kind of like on everybody's post on social media, they talking about some form of vulnerability or some form of place that they're in. And my
Mhm.
thought is that why, in the intention of us knowing and us being so smart and us being, I often always had these kind of questions, even when I was a child, when I was see grown-ups do stupid things that my parents would tell me you shouldn't be doing. And I always had this education thing. It's like, if we're so smart, why do we continuously follow and continuously do such stupid things? And when I say stupid, I don't mean so heavy accent on the stupid, person or individual, but the stupidity of the act and the incident. How do we get continuously caught up in this and come to this tribalization part of that. This is like it really has amazed me my whole life. Like I see people do things, and I'm just like, you know that? Like, how do we get to that? How did that happen?
I have a couple of
Yes.
thoughts for you,
Oh,
Carl.
share this. Yes, share this with me,
So,
please.
but first, I want to comment on the beliefs that can make people hesitant to reach out for help. There's a whole host of things because, when I was talking about it's as easy as servicing this organ, that's the logical argument, right? However, human beings are not logical. We are emotional, and we also get impacted by our experiences. So there are lots of experiences that make us, willing or unwilling, or motivated or unmotivated to go to counseling. It's how you were raised in your family. Did you tell somebody that you went to therapy and you got judged? Is it the not one of the socially accepted customs of the ethnic group that you're a part of? Is it, that therapy is not normalized in the country that you come from? There are lots of factors that influence whether or not we are willing or open to go to counseling because we don't exist in a vacuum. We are impacted by lots of different social systems that give us permission or not permission to pursue something like that. So there are lots of factors around not only going to therapy or not, but whether or not you can even talk about it. So, for example, mental health is not super openly discussed in lots of different Asian cultures, or even different countries within Africa, or certain countries within South America. There are lots of different places where it's just not really socially done talking about mental health or counseling or whatever it is. But for example, the US or Canada or the UK or Brazil or Australia, New Zealand, some of those, it's a totally different conversation. Mental health means different things to different people, to different cultures, to different countries. And then to go back to your question, quite sadly, my friend, humans are really good at being self-destructive. We're really good at doing things that are bad for us, and we're really good at being selfish. We are
Yeah.
inherently social creatures, which is absolutely true. And there are lots of wonderful people on the planet who are considerate and they're relationally focused and they want to make sure people around them are taken care of. There are lots of people like that. And there's also a lot of people who are not like that, if we're being totally honest. So humans, unfortunately, are very good at being self-destructive and doing things that are not good for their fellow man or woman, and also being a little bit selfish because it's easier. And so, that phrase "common sense is not so common," that is true.
Yes.
Common sense is very relative, and it depends on that person's life. It depends on their experience. I never assume that someone has the exact same shared understanding about the world that I do, because we have
Yes.
different lives. We have
Yeah.
totally different lives. And I see examples of this every single day. And how could this person say this? How could they do that? La la la. And I go, how could they not? It's real to them. They have a different life than you. So whenever I hear people, I couldn't reason with them. I couldn't get them to understand. Why did they do this? Why did they believe that? Because it seems real to them. That's why.
Yeah. Never looked at it.
A,
I've never
a
looked
little
at it.
dark, but it's the
Yeah.
truth.
Because I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of macabre when you think
Very.
about uh, that aspect of what someone thinks is their reality. And I know I've heard this, and probably others have as well. Heard like each individual's own reality is just that, their own reality. And though we
Yeah.
look at it and say that maybe across the board there should be some understanding versus things that are going on, that we should share a common reality, right? Rules are in place, laws are in place and enforceable, and things of these nature. So I look at it from the aspect of saying, okay, you live and being governed in the same way that I am, why you can't understand that this is how things go. And I think I really got a rude, well, I wouldn't necessarily say rude, but I really got an eye-opening effect to that over the past few years of the administration and what we were in. I'm not really a Republican or Democrat, and this is not the rabbit hole I'm going down. It is just the avenue of things that have transpired, which we cannot continue to ignore. There has been a lot of divisiveness over the past few years, and
Yeah.
all of that has caused a ripple effect in people's mental health, how they
Oh yeah.
interact, and all of those things, and what's right and what's wrong. The line is like, I used to tell a friend of mine, the line is blurred, and I said that before the Trump administration came in, because I started saying a lot of things, and I say in government and just in our statewide, and I said the line is being blurred. And I just had the same conversation with him about 2 years after that. And I was like, the line is erased. Like it's online. We're now calling news fake news. We're like, we don't know who to trust. Like when the news came on at 6:30 or whatever, your local national news was, you kind of like sat down, you grew up kind of like sitting down knowing that was the information that you can take and make decisions on, and kind of like, bond yourself to, like, okay, I know this guy, or been on the news for 30 years. I know his stuff is real. Now we've gotten to this plan with, now I can post whatever I want to post, or I
Mm.
can manipulate the news media. All of this has been kind of strenuous on even our psyche of even thinking about how we are to do things. Is that really how we've gotten tribalized? How do you think? When do you think that's really has taken place, where we're getting this social division to say, pick a side? Because they used to be all like, even though we had some instances, some
Yeah.
things, some
Yeah.
articles, some, you would definitely say, okay, that's maybe just go political. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Democratic or Republican. You kind of like,
Mhm.
it was kind of like visually what you can see obvious.
Yeah.
Now it's like everything's divisional. When did we come to that place, or when do you think we came to that point?
That's a really good question. And I think that it is three things
Okay.
in no particular order:
Okay.
social media, non-neutral news reporting, and 24/7 access to unfiltered information. I think it's those three things. So I distinctly remember, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, and the news. And granted, the news is always coming through a filter. It's always coming through a lens. There's a very old saying: if it bleeds, it leads. They want to
Yeah.
use the stuff that will shock you, so you keep
Yes. Keep
watching.
watching. Yeah.
So the news has always been a little bit slanted, if we can be totally honest.
This is true.
However, however, several decades ago, there was a journalistic integrity
Yeah.
for really good reporting to give the full story, as opposed to being the first to give the story, that I feel has really eroded. And so they're doing this like drip reporting, coming out as it's coming out, as opposed to waiting to get the full situation before you inform people. That seems
Yeah.
like a thing of the past, because people's attention spans are so short,
Mm.
and people are so easily disinterested and move on to the next thing. So they're just trying to constantly capture your attention, no matter what side you're on. And then in terms of quality of information, the internet is an incredible place. You can learn anything, get access to anything, talk to people all across the planet. The internet is incredible. It's also very destructive
Mm.
and very dangerous. So it's so big, we can't even conceive of the amount of information that's on there, and it's not all fact checked. There's lots of the places online where that literally doesn't matter, and people are just voicing opinions which are based on their reality. And
Mm.
also, we as humans are not meant to have access to that much information all the time. It is not how we are built. We are adapting, but make no mistake, being connected to screens all day and constantly having access to information is a great way for your amygdala to feel like you're being surrounded by 8 tigers. That's what's happening to your brain when you're constantly seeing this information. Your brain is like, who do I have to kill? Seriously, that's what your brain is doing. Like, who do I have to kill? Who do I have to survive against? but it can't tell that you're just looking at Instagram, or it can't tell that you're just watching, Fox or CNN or whatever it is. And then if you think about the invent of social media, there's good and bad. The good things is that it helps people stay connected across the world. You can create social movements that really create change. There are lots of great things that come from social media, but also super destructive. Chronic usage of social media has been shown to lead to higher rates of clinical anxiety and depression, or thoughts of suicidality, or comparing yourself to others, or looking at others and making you feel like you're an imposter, or following social media pages that are very extreme, and then it changes your beliefs. I mean, there are literally social media campaigns that have influenced elections.
Yeah.
Think about that. That is frightening.
Yeah.
So if you think about, to answer your question, that's what I feel, is that social media, the constant access to information, and biased news reporting, and it's only getting worse because it's the boulder is going so fast down the hill, no one can stop it. No one can stop it. I do not see any universe where it goes back to what it used to be, because that's not how people work. It's not how evolution works. There's only going forward. And in terms of the severity of how social media, constant access to information, and biased news reporting, I sadly don't know if I see that improving, because people don't want to feel like they're being controlled. Human beings hate to feel controlled, or told how to feel, or told how to think. So sadly, I'm not super optimistic, because this is so much bigger than us. It's so big. And unfortunately, it's so broken. Broken. So people like us are trying to do our part to help people take the red pill instead of the blue pill.
I know, right?
I'm so excited for the new Matrix coming out in December, by the way.
Oh, yes, we do. We need some semblance to that. I mean, some kind of grounding, just like the things that what you were saying is just like so true. That we knew the news, like anyone just looking at it, and just the dynamic of how it came across so many years ago, as a lot of us was growing up, and we would sit and pause, or our parents were, that would be like their staple time for everybody be in front of the TV. The news was kind of like a highlight of things for information, and now you said something that is just so great, that now information is, and it is overwhelming. Like I don't understand it. I was at a point where I didn't want to fool with at all with social media, right? And I wasn't, right. I didn't do. I was on LinkedIn every now and then. This was before the pandemic. I was on LinkedIn every now and then. I didn't have a Facebook. I didn't have. I had a YouTube, but like I wasn't active on those kind of things. Twitter I had, but wasn't doing a lot of active, because they just became such a weight of not anything good coming out of it, regardless of, like, we may have a little story here that somebody post that was a good, a good nature story or good Samaritan story. But I mean, everything was just so weighted with either bad things, or either people's understanding of things or misunderstanding of things. And I was like, no, but now when you get back into it, now I got a business now, and everyone's saying, well, you got to be on these social media sites so people could see you, and people could, now it's kind of like directing, and like you said, was so grave to even hear. I don't think we can turn it around, and I say that not from a place of not hoping we can, not really wishing we can, not wanting us to, but realistically speaking, like, we can't even turn this around regardless of whatever goes on now. We're just kind of like stuck in this motion of kind of like, like into the cartoon where the snowball starts at the top of the hill and it's rolling down, and it's picking up people in the way, and it's keep going. What are some of the things that you think, beside those things, what are some of the, let's see how I ask this, when we're thinking about these things and we're doing it individually, and what can be better for us in maintaining our mental health? Because everybody don't want to ask, like, for help, or everyone knows probably needed with a lot of us now, with a lot of things that we're dealing with. what are some of the options that you think are available for those who probably still on the fence with asking, what can we do individualized that can help us to maintain kind of like our mental health, our mental stability, or is that
Mm.
something that just has to be professionally driven, professionally done?
So the first question I would ask to people who are feeling hesitant or not sold on either going to counseling or even just talking to other people about their mental health, not all mental health conversations warrant going to therapy.
Yes.
Most therapists probably won't say that, but I'll say that. Not all mental health conversations need clinical treatment. Some of them
Yes.
just need supportive friends or a supportive family or a supportive, community group, or, if you're religious, talking to your spiritual leader or whatever it is. Not all conversations are, warrant going to counseling. Some of them definitely do, speaking as the therapist who used to treat those people. But the question I would ask people who are on the fence is, how you're currently doing things working out for you?
Mm.
If the answer is not well, you might want to change how you're doing it, right? So if it's not working out well and you feel like crap, you might want to try something different.
Try something different. Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to try something different. And going back really quickly to the social media thing, I think that something else that really adds to the distress is the wanting to be heard as well. And so you see a lot of
Mm.
those arguments happening. And I am also like you, where I use social media for my business. I don't partake in Twitter at all. My
Mhm.
Facebook is only personal, close family and friends. My
Yeah.
Instagram is my business page, but I only follow things that make me happy or are important to me, like certain, civil rights issues or social issues or things like that. It's
Mhm.
basically like puppies, baking, and the ACLU. That's my Instagram feed and
Well, this is
travel.
sort of like the same thing. I got a few people in there that said
Right,
the
right,
communities
yeah,
that I'm in is there, but for the
right,
most part, it's things that make me happy because I don't want
right,
to fool with anything else. It just really don't.
right. All
Yeah.
you can do is try to control and influence how you care for your own mental health, talking to other people about your mental health, making choices about the discussions that you do or don't want to be a part of, and how you want to be a part of those conversations. Because, oh my gosh, I realize we keep going back to social media, but arguments on the internet with strangers, what a waste of time. You don't know these people.
And
What
it
what's
gets so much fuel and so much traction, which
woo
I
spicy,
can't
really
understand. I
spicy.
can't understand. It gets so much, and now we've having
Yeah.
so many avenues. Now we're going with the everyone. We can't do enough on social media now. Now these outlets have got to get audio rooms. So now we having like Clubhouse and Green Room and all of these places now where okay, you guys have been covering it on social media for so long. We're gonna give you guys a place to have a room to argue, a place to have these kind of things. And I think about like we're just continually facilitating this demise of ourselves. And I don't know who it was in history, and I remember someone that said we're going to destroy, we don't have to worry about the bombs destroying us. Like people going to destroy themselves before
Thousand percent.
anyone ever,
Totally agree.
yeah, before anyone ever
Totally
gets to
agree.
push the bomb, push the nuclear bomb button. And those are the kind of places that we are at now. And if people are seeking these kind of the kind of advice of what you're saying, where can individuals go to kind of like get that get that nurture? And I know sometimes you have it in your circle, close family and
Mhm.
friends are definitely an
Yeah.
avenue. If you have those relationships, those are becoming tricky now. Because I got a guy that lives not too far from me, and it works with me, and he's like he's vaccinated and he's all in, and we got to go to the vaccinations really because this is really what's dominating everything. He's vaccinated all in, and his wife's not, and they're in the same household. And like he comes to me with these discussions of like, man, I don't know what to do. It's like we see so many things, and I'm like, it's permeating in the singular households of people and individuals where
Oh,
the
it's destroying
division,
families.
yeah, where the division is
Yeah.
coming. Like, how can we kind of get in our own households with our own selves, with our own circle? What are some of the things you think that you can give us that can be useful for us? Just participating in the everyday, with us working from home, people are home
Yeah.
more, those kind of things. What are some of the steps we can take, or some of the things that we can do to impact our lives, like right away?
I would focus on finding shared understanding and shared compromise where you can, because trying to convince people generally doesn't go well, because people take that as you're saying my beliefs are wrong. You're saying my beliefs are stupid, even if that's not what you're saying. So I would say try to find shared compromise, shared understanding, shared agreement on personal safety where you can. So, for example, I have certain friends or family members that don't do the mask thing, they don't do the vaccine, and that's their opinion and that's what they're choosing. But even though we don't agree, we try to find areas where we can and communicate civilly with each other, because we're family and we're
Yeah,
friends. And I don't agree with what they're doing, but I'm not going to browbeat them, because what is that going to do? It's not going to do anything. All I can do is request that if they are around me, to take certain safety protocols for my safety, for their safety, which not everybody can even get on that page, because it makes them feel like, well, you're telling me what to do.
yeah,
But hopefully, the friends and family you have in your life will be at least that considerate, that even if they don't want to get the vaccine or whatever it is, that they can take some steps to try to, keep them safe and keep you safe. But it's really, I just keep going back to this: seek to understand why they feel that way. Ask them to explain. And you might actually end up finding some areas of commonality that are not, that are a little surprising, because people are so quick to be like, but you should do this, and why aren't you doing this? You really think that's going to go well?
nah,
It's
probably
not going to
not.
go well. Ask to understand why. And also, there is a form of acceptance. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but there is some acceptance that some people will not change. They are entrenched in what they believe. Is that ideal? Nope, not ideal at all. That's one of the reasons that the US cannot get COVID under control. That's one of the reasons that, other countries in the world cannot get COVID under control, because we cannot seem to get on the same page. And if we're being really honest, we might never get on the same page, because we're so deeply entrenched in our beliefs that it comes a point of acceptance and maintenance, and trying to find shared understanding and compromise where you can, because what is our other option? We don't have another option. So but that takes critical thinking and patience, which is not a highly prized characteristic these days.
No,
So
it's not.
seek to understand, right? Shared compromise and understanding where you can.
Yeah, it's when you think about it, it's when you put the whole totality into a box and a package, or however you want to put it. To me, it's sad, and
It is
it's sad.
sad, very sad.
That's really like the feeling I've got. I mean, I'm past the anger of those who don't want to. I'm past the frustration with those who continually pushing against. I'm like, and then you have those that, I mean, with just instances of where you got the governor down in, I don't know what this, the governor, he's apologizing now that he made it a law that you can't mandate. Now he's like, he wish he wouldn't have done that. And then you have the CDC with, you need a mask, you don't need a mask. Now you need a mask. Now you not. I was like, I look back on all of those things, and then you have the governor of I think Texas it was saying that, if they come
Yeah,
back, we're gonna arrest them, or I'm gonna take money away from superintendents if they force the kids. I
really
mean, come
scary.
on, like it's just like really anarchy. I was watching
It's
the other
political.
day, and it kind of reminded me of the movie Purge, where we just
Oh
seem
my
like we're
God.
I mean, I know that's probably like a drastic comparison,
No,
but
I get it. I do.
that's really how I
I
feel.
do.
It's like a group of people who have just said, okay, we're just gonna run shotgun on whatever was before for this 24 hours of time. And our 24 hours is not really 24 hours. It's just like until people get tired or until we exhaust all avenues of getting people out who don't agree with us. Or I mean, we're making it, and it's not even political. So I mean, it's political still in a fine tune, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's so dangerous now that we're
Incredibly
playing
dangerous. Yeah.
we're playing a chess game with so many pawns of innocent people, with people that have
Yeah,
power. I'm like, there's so misuse of power. We didn't even get to
I
the
agree.
workplace part of this. It's so much misuse of power with these ones that's in office. And I didn't never. When does the governor say, I'm going to find townships or counties for putting mandates that it's for the well-being of people in that county? Like when you think of that, even in the rationale of it, like that doesn't make sense to me. Have we
He's
gotten to
doing it
this
because
point?
he can.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. So we've really just lost focus of humanity in the essence of
I
this,
agree.
and it goes back
100%.
to what do I want? What do I want? And we're all headed for mass destruction. We've got
So,
to do part two of this.
oh my gosh, yes. And I,
Yes,
I
we got
was
to do
gonna say
part two.
that I think because there's a lot of noise,
Okay.
tons of noise, and we don't often just pause to try to sit with our own thoughts because for some people that can actually be stressful and scary to
Scary.
sit and be like, what do I actually think? What
There's a
do
lot.
I actually want, independent of what other people are saying I should want, or saying I should think, or saying I should feel? And just pausing for like a minute and just trying to think about that. All you can control and influence is how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you treat other people. And what's really interesting is if you look at some of the cultures that are more collectivistic in nature. So, for example, some of Asian countries or some Latin American countries. And granted, these are generalizations based on themes. Each person is different. Each family is different. Each community is different. But the cultures that are more collectivistically focused, so focused on the safety and well-being of the group as opposed to the individual,
Mhm.
they're doing a little better than we are.
Yeah.
The United States. The United States is very individualistic.
Mhm.
It's very every person for themselves. It's very selfish. The United States is a very selfish place. And speaking as someone who's lived overseas 3 times and seen how other cultures are more kind to each other, more civil to each other, more focused on taking care of the collective as opposed to the individual. The US is a very selfish place.
Yeah.
And that's why, and it's not, we're not alone. There are lots of other countries that are acting like that. But the US is a particular brand of being individualistically focused. And so we are experiencing the consequences as such. But what people like you and I can do is try to encourage people just to pause for a minute and create space between stimulus and response and just be willing to consider other lines of thought. That is all we can do because we can't count on the people in a position of influence. We can't count on the outlets to encourage that critical thinking. So it's up to individuals like us and other people to encourage other individuals to do that.
Yeah.
That's what it's left to now.
And that's the importance of the conversations that we have,
Yeah.
and the dynamic on the stage that we have to we have to move it to. I think LinkedIn and those kind of platforms that are
Oh yeah.
allowing that freedom of conversation to come across, and they're not, they're not trying to ban it or not trying to take it off or cut people loose with it, but we're giving an avenue to that, and I want to bring up those kind of discussions,
Yeah.
and because they're needed, because we're going down a path where I already see there's no return. But I'm also optimistic fellow too. I also see everything is half full. So when I look at it, I mean, there's some objectivity there that says, okay, all right, if we stop right now, and I know people have been saying that. I looked at the global warming, and the gentleman was on there. The world is came out is coming. We got floods on this side, fires on this side, and he said, okay, if we all just stop right now, and I don't know if he's being facetious in saying it, but he was just making a point. I'm saying if we all just stop right now, maybe there's something we could do about it. And then it cut to the other angle. And I was saying, I think he was saying that being facetious, because I know that with everything that's going on, we're kind of too far to stop right now, because someone's going to have an issue with stopping right now. It's not going to go well with someone
Right.
somewhere,
Right.
So we can't do that, but we can definitely have these conversations and to bring these things to the surface. And maybe the right individual here, or the one that can cause shifts, to be able to listen and hear and say, oh, okay, maybe we can do it differently. If it's not in my time, it's not in your time. Maybe it's in the time if the world's not burned itself up or blew itself up at that point. Maybe
Mhm.
it's the time of those that's coming behind us. The kids who we look at and seeing the development of the young kids getting ready to go back to school on the bus. And I look, and sometimes I just stand on my porch and I look, and I was like, oh, what are their future going to be? The little
Yeah.
4s and 5 years, 6 years olds that get on the bus, they have no really idea what's really taking place. And they're really the ones that's being hurt and put in these positions. What are their future going to look like? And it's just a sad thing, but we have to
Yeah.
continue to talk about it. Mel, I have
Yeah.
enjoyed this. We got to do part two. I'm going to get
Oh
something.
my gosh, yes. A
We got to
million
do
times
part
yes.
two. We're
Has to
going
be
to
a part
go.
two.
Yes, we talked about us in the pandemic talk, but we're going to be talking about. I already got the action. We're going to go into the workplace, and we're going to talk about some of those mental health things
Oh
that
yeah.
people are shifting, and these attitudes that are shifting back
Yeah.
to the workplace. So we're definitely going to do that.
Absolutely. And that will be part two of this conversation because all of the things, all of the social things we discussed,
Yes.
you bet your butt that people are bringing that stuff into the workplace.
Yes, they are.
Because
They are.
whether we're working remotely or in a physical location or whatever it is, our
Mhm.
beliefs and thoughts and all that don't just like switch off at 9 a.m.
No, they
So
don't.
all of this gets brought into work, which is a lot of the deliveries I'm doing for companies now is
Mhm.
teaching companies, leaders, people how to navigate these difficult conversations at work,
Yes.
and especially surrounding return to office and lots of stuff.
Oh man, that's gonna
So our next chat
yes,
definitely
we're
is
gonna get
how
our
this is
next
going to be
set
brought into the
on.
workplace.
Definitely. I appreciate those that are coming back. Remember, I'm going to play this again on hashtag replay. We're gonna go. I know it was a little bit early, a lot of guests, but we had some excessive great conversation. We're gonna do this part two. I'm gonna get with Melissa, and we're going to narrow down another date so we can have another conversation with Carl, and we're
You
gonna
got it.
touch bases on that. And Steph stopped in. Thank you, Steph, for coming in. Yes, we need that. Maybe we see invite Steph in and see her thoughts on this, and make it kind of like a panel, because I would like this to grow, because
Sure.
this discussion is something that I think that we need to have. We need to have some call to actions and some things where people could just in their area, they can make changes. They can affect change just in their circle. And I think if we kind of pass this around as a kind of baton, we can start getting more people involved, or if not involved, educated,
Yeah.
advised, those kind of things, so they can have those kind of choices and decisions to make. Mel, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you again, guests. I appreciate everyone that has came by. Appreciate all you guys comments and talking to us this morning, and it has been lovely. I've enjoyed it. Be looking out for part two. I'm going to get with Melissa Doman, and we're going to put together another session of this, and we're going to go into the workplace. We're going to cover the whole spectrum of this, guys. This
Oh
conversation is
yeah.
not over. I'm excited about having it. I'm going to join. I'm going to get in touch with a couple more people, and we're going to kind of make a panel of this thing, because I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about where we can take this with just conversation. and that conversation hopefully will turn into some action, and we can start making some changes, if not in the next door neighbor's life, in your own life, and the things that you're doing with your family, your loved ones, and those that's in your circle. All right, you guys have a beautiful rest of your Wednesday. Thank you so much, Melissa. You have a great Melissa. Tell them where they can find you. Almost forgot. Tell them where they can
Oh,
find you. We used to have such a good conversation. I almost forgot. Tell them where they can find you and some of the good things you're doing. Definitely.
sure, sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really
It's my
excited for
pleasure.
part two of this conversation for sure.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
for any of you tuning in that want to open up mental health at work conversations in a realistic, constructive way at your company, the best place you can find me is my website. So that is melissadoman.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, same spelling of the name, on Instagram at the Wandering Mel. And please don't hesitate to get in touch. I would love to hear from you on ways that I can help your organization to open up this conversation in an authentic way. And I am going to have to do a quick plug for the book, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is my pride and joy. It's coming out October
Yes.
12th in the US and abroad, and
Go get it, guys. Go get
October
it.
14th in the UK. Currently available for pre-order on every online retailer website. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google Books, it's
Yes.
available everywhere. And let me tell you, unless you are Stephen King or Elizabeth Gilbert or Dan Brown, you don't write a book to make money. I want people to get this so they can actually take action and
Yes.
do something.
Yeah.
It's not for the money, people, let me tell you. But please just read it so you can take action for yourself and for other people. And please say hi. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yes, we definitely would. And we appreciate that. Go get that book, guys. 'Cause I'm going to go get it. I'm going to get the information and I'm going to go get it because I walk how I talk and I talk how I live. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the book. We're going to be sharing some things in there. Hopefully, the next conversation we have, we're going to bring up some topics that Melissa has covered in the book because I know it's going to be dynamic. I know it's going to be informational for you guys. And I know it's going to change the way you think about things. Remember that. It's always about you. And this is why we do this show, Conversations with Carl. We have conversations, candid conversations with experts and people in the fields of understanding and knowing and giving you call to actions, you to take action so you can better and improve and transform the way that you live. And that's what we're all about. Again, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for Melissa for coming. I'll get with you so we can get a second date and then we'll be able to put it out there for others to come and join us. I appreciate having you. You guys have a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday. Know that you love. Know that you love. That's all. Know that you love. All right. And I appreciate you guys. Have a great one.
Bye, everybody.